Teaching number 150. You come in search of the comforting Spirit, because you have not found relief in your tribulations. You have gone to the doors of doctors and lawyers, to the hearts of the beings who love you, and you have not been able to recover peace, and you have convinced yourself that the balm or the light that you have been looking for, you can only find it in the source from where everything proceeds fine. You all seek the true path, you need spiritual sustenance, the word of encouragement and hope that comes to revive you, and as long as you manage to achieve what you have been looking for, you make me aware of your concerns, your fear of divine judgment and the longing to find yourself at peace with your conscience. You are in my presence, even though you feel far away from me. You are not alone in your pain, I accompany you, and if you call yourselves misunderstood, I tell you that I, the Father, know everything that happens inside you and that I will give you the solution you are looking for, the peace that you need and to help you reach your elevation. When you first came to hear my word, you tasted it and found it pure in its essence, you recognized that I was sending it to you, you have only doubted because of the way of communicating with man, but if you study it, you will recognize that I have not made a mistake, and that man, because he is my son, is qualified to serve as my instrument to carry out my designs in the service of his brothers. I am calling men, women and children, to make them my disciples, and while some believe, others doubt and distrust, that is because they have been deceived so much, that today that I speak to humanity taking as interpreters of my teachings, the understandings of rude, simple and humble men, my manifestation seems strange to you. Recognize that my word is invariable in its truth, and that what I told you in the first era, I ratified it in the second and have confirmed it in the third. All of you who hear my word in this way have been prepared to feel and understand this manifestation of my Spirit, and you were only waiting for the moment when I called you, to witness these manifestations. I have not surprised anyone, since before coming to incarnate you I told you that you would be present in these acts and that you belong to the number of beings chosen to bring the good news to the world. The children of this time show me their hazardous path, they tell me that the environment in which they live is not the most conducive to spirituality, and they ask me for light for their parents and teachers. In them, since childhood, a struggle has been waged between spirit and matter, in which good and reason sometimes win, and other times the flesh prevails. Do not tell me that you are weak, if you carry the light of my Spirit, if I have endowed you with virtue and energy so that you can fulfill your duties, strive and use your power. I have descended to all my children in search of their spirits, because they belong to me, but not all of them want to follow me, most of them ask me for more time and tell me that for now they cannot come with me, and I have given each spirit the time necessary for its fulfillment. It is true that you have suffered a lot in this time and that you long to live a better life, and the Father tells you, work out your peace, and either in this world or in the spiritual valley, you will find rest. This earth that you inhabit is a place of atonement, of struggle, of improvement. If you want to remember the life of Jesus in the second era, you will find it strewn with suffering, devoid of comforts and joys. He is the example, the model that is before your spirit, for you to imitate. But everyone who comes to me will find relief, because I am the inexhaustible spring that pours out in torrents, take from there to water your fields. The lands are prepared for men to hasten to cultivate them, the fields await you before they are covered with weeds or noxious herbs, go and cultivate them, and when you see that the wheat has ripened, reap it together with the grass and later separate the one from the other. That is why I am always telling you, watch and pray, because if you are not careful, the weed will make greater progress than your seed, and its fruit will be the one that abounds the day you harvest. Make your fields turn golden so that you can deposit your wheat in my barns and the harvest be abundant. Humanity is hungry for my word, for my truth. Men claim and yearn for the light to reach their understanding, they cry out for justice and wait for consolation. This is a decisive time. Truly I tell you that many ideas, theories, and even dogmas that were held as truths for centuries, will fall to the ground and be abandoned as false. Fanaticism and idolatry will be combated and exterminated by those who were most involved and attached to them. God's teachings will be understood, its light, its content and essence will be understood and felt. The men of science, after a time of trials in which they will suffer great confusion, when light shines in their spirit and they listen to the voice of their conscience, they will discover what they had never dreamed of. Again I say to you, be vigilant, because in the time of the struggles of creeds and doctrines, of religions and sciences, many men will believe that the knowledge that books have given them will be the weapon with which they can defeat my new disciples, knowing that you do not keep books. When Jesus preached to the multitudes, he did not speak to them of teachings learned in books. However, he gave a lecture of wisdom, proof of which he gave from his childhood, appearing in the bosom of the doctors of the law, to confuse them and make them mute with his questions and leave them astonished with his answers. The knowledge of Jesus came from the divine Spirit, which revealed everything to them. If any of you cleaned your understanding, stripped your heart of bad feelings and low passions, and raised your spirit to the Father to surrender to him in love and service to your fellow men, you would be converted into a clean fountain that the Master would fill with your inspiration. I would be that man, like a clean glass on my table, which I would fill with the wine of life, so that those who perish might quench their thirst with it. He who prepares himself in this way will convince. Whoever speaks to him, will console with his word, will silence the vain, will perform surprising works, those that the world calls miracles and that are nothing more than natural manifestations of the love and faith of an elevated spirit. When they ask you, why, being God so great, has he used such an insignificant human being to manifest his wisdom? You will answer, God's love for his children has no limits, that is why he has used them to perform this miracle. Being powerful, eternal, infinite and at the same time Father of all that has been created, I can make use of all my children for my divine purposes. In my fatherly love, I do not come to focus on your littleness, on your sin, I seek you for your humility. If you consider your human form too small for God to take care of you, who gave you that form, if not me? Furthermore, when I became a man, was I not like you? The echo of the voice that reaches your ears is that of the matter that interprets me as a spokesperson in the moments of my manifestation. The word that reaches your mind and your heart is human, but the essence of that word is divine and therefore enlightens and comforts the spirit. If I had come in human form to repeat my lessons of the second era, I would have halted your spirit and humanity would not have recognized me, but I, the master of all perfection, take you step by step, always towards the top of the mountain, teaching you new lessons each time. God is invisible to human eyes and even his own spirit because he has no form or limits. That is why many, when they look at you elevated in prayer, listening to me, doubt it because they do not know that the divine and the spiritual, apparently invisible to the human eyes, is felt by the spirit and even by the heart. He who truly believes in me knows my voice wherever I speak to him. I am like a shepherd who is followed by his sheep and who is always recognized by his voice. That is why in this time in which I find myself speaking to you through human understanding, you have recognized the voice of your Lord. You have not stopped to judge the deficiencies of the spokesman, nor have you taken into account the mistakes that his rudeness makes him commit. You have understood that it is I who speaks to you. When you hear my voice, you will instantly recognize it to say, it is he. It has always been the humble and the poor who discover my presence, because their understandings are not occupied with human theories that separate them from clear discernment. In the second era it also happened that having been announced the coming of the Messiah, when he arrived, those who felt him were the simple of heart, those of humble spirit and clean understanding. The theologians had in their hands the book of the prophets and daily they repeated the words that announced the signs, the time and the form of the coming of the Messiah. However, they saw me and did not recognize me, they listened to me and denied that I was the promised Savior, they saw my works and the only thing they knew how to do was be scandalized, when in truth, all of them had been prophesied. When the day came when the mobs, incited by those who felt uneasy with the presence of Jesus, wounded and whipped him, and they saw him bleed like a mere mortal under the effect of the whipping, later, agonize and die like any human, the Pharisees, the princes and the priests, exclaimed with satisfaction, Behold the one who calls himself the Son of God, who believed himself to be a king and passed himself off as the Messiah. It was for them, more than for others, that Jesus asked his Father to forgive those who, knowing the Scriptures, were denying him, and before the crowds they were showing him as an impostor. They were the ones who, claiming to be the doctors of the law, in reality, when judging Jesus, did not know what they were doing, while there, among the crowds, there were hearts broken by pain, in the face of the injustice they were witnessing, and faces overwhelmed by tears, before the sacrifice of the just. They were the men and women with simple hearts and humble and elevated spirits, who knew who was the one who had been in the world with men and understood what they lost when the Master departed. People, also in this time the form of communication under which you have had my word will be misjudged, and also the doctrine and the revelations that I have made to you, will be denied by those who say they know the form in which my return should be. They will not analyze my word, they will not look for its essence, nor will they take into account the prodigies and signs that I have given you of my coming and of my truth, but they will take as a reason to deny me the imperfect works that they find in this people, their profanations and disobedience. Then they will get up saying, "Is that the Spirit of Christ who told you that when the year 1950 arrived he would stop communicating with you? Can you say today that this demonstration will end and tomorrow proclaim the opposite? Because from now on I tell you that many will maintain that I will continue to communicate in the same way, when the year 1950 has passed." O beloved people, do you want to be the cause that tomorrow the world will mock you like this and deny what I have spoken to you? See how I prepare you so that when the moment of my departure approaches, you will not let the darkness penetrate your heart, but I tell you that those who have truly felt and understood my word will turn away from the paths of confusion, to seek me in solitude, from spirit to spirit. They will hear in their hearts the unforgettable and well-known voice of their teacher, who tells them, "Blessed are you who cry when you contemplate the profanation of my work, because you know that this has been the reason that many do not know it and that others mock it and deny it. Pray and watch, disciples, so that you continue to recognize my voice among all the deceitful ones that the world provides you, and thus you will see yourself led with love and care to the end of the path, where the Father's house opens like a sheepfold of infinite magnitude to forever guard those whom I created with love and sent so that their merits on earth would make them worthy of the perfect dwelling. When I tell you that it is Christ who speaks to you, there is no lack of those who judge those who transmit my word as blasphemers, but this way of judging and analyzing is not strange, given that their insensitivity to the spiritual prevents them from feeling me through the essence of my doctrine. One time, before the Pharisees, I said, "The Father and I are one," and they also called me a blasphemer and resorted to the Scriptures, trying to prove that everything I said was false. Today I tell you that whoever does not open the eyes of his spirit, will not be able to see the divine light, because no one has been as tested as Jesus was. The men interrogated me, set traps for me, tried to confuse me with their tendentious questions, rebuked me to test my prudence, and not finding a way to evade me despite their efforts, accused me, slandered me and judged me, to see how he who called himself Son of God behaved in that case. But not satisfied with all that, they also wanted to see if my body was bleeding and if it was made of flesh and bone. And when Jesus stumbled along the way and bled, they tuned their ears waiting to hear my complaints. When I said that the Father and I were one, the Spirit spoke, but when the body bled, it was the human part that complained, because it was living flesh. The world asked me to show it my truth, and the truth I showed, but seeing it, was not recognized. My word and my works would have been enough to test the divine power of the one who had done them. However, that power was not attributed to me, but my death as a man was not the end of those tests. I went in spirit before my disciples, and even among them there was one who put me to the test and who did not believe in the resurrection of his Lord, until he was convinced by sinking his fingers into the wound in my side. Later, when the seed of the word of Jesus spread from region to region and from nation to nation, the unbelievers, the skeptics, the materialists, arose at every step, to continue submitting my doctrine, my words, and my works to their reasoning. But men have not confined themselves to judging my truth only through my works and my doctrine, but they have dedicated themselves to scrutinizing my human nature, my inception, my birth, my childhood, and how many steps I took on earth. But neither did Mary, the holy and pure woman chosen by God to give the world the fruit of life, escape that same scrutiny. She also knew of the scorn, of the trials and tests of men. It was not enough for them that from times past the prophet Isaiah had announced her as virginal and pure. And yet this is the time when men, through religions and sects, discuss and deliberate about her. I tell you that as long as humanity does not get rid of its materialism, when judging the truth, it will not be able to face it. I forgive some and others, but I advise you not to continue taking my words to confuse one another, to hurt or to kill yourselves, because your judgment will have to be great. If you deepen your discussions and come to hate each other because of your differences, when are you going to unite in the one truth? Do not fear me, fear yourselves, the teacher tells you. Did I judge from the cross those who sacrificed me? Did Mary have reproaches or complaints in that infinitely painful hour? No, people. I am not judging you now either. Truly I tell you that each one forms his own judgment and dictates his sentence. I want to free you from pain, from atonement, from the bitter chalice, and for this I invite you to begin to love one another, because that is the path that can lead you to light, to peace and to truth. If you still think that your sufferings are due to your first parents, you will be committing in your judgments a lack of understanding with your God. In a divine parable, I inspired the first men to begin to have knowledge of their destiny, but the meaning of my revelations was misunderstood. When you were told about the tree of life, about the knowledge of good and evil, from which man ate, it was only meant to make you understand that when man came to have sufficient knowledge to distinguish between the just and the unjust and began to be responsible for his actions, since then he began to collect the fruit of his works. Many have been the men who have accepted that all the tears of this world have been caused by a sin of the first settlers, and in their clumsiness to analyze the parable, have come to say that Christ came to wash with his blood all stain. If such an affirmation had been true, why, despite the fact that that sacrifice has already been consummated, do men continue to sin and also suffer? Jesus came to earth to teach men the path of perfection, a path that he taught with his life, with his deeds and with his words. You know that God said to men, grow and multiply and fill the earth. This was the initial law given to you, O people. Later the Father did not only exhort men to multiply and that the human race continued to grow, but that their feelings they became more and more generous and their spirit developed without obstacles. But if the first law had as its goal the spread of the human race, can you suppose that the Father himself would punish you because you followed and fulfilled a commandment? Is it possible, people, that such a contradiction exists in your God? See what a material interpretation men gave to a parable in which you are only told about the awakening of the Spirit in man. Therefore, analyze my teaching and say no more than that you are paying the debt that the first settlers contracted with your father due to their disobedience. Have a higher idea of divine justice. I have told you that even the last stain will be removed from the heart of man, but I also tell you that everyone must wash their own stains. Remember that I told you, with the rod that you measure, you will be measured, and what is sown is reaped. This is the time when you can understand me when I say to you, increase and multiply, that this must be done spiritually as well and that you must fill the universe with your good deeds and lofty thoughts. I welcome all who want to come closer to me, all who seek perfection. Rest from your earthly fatigue, my children, penetrate your interior, where the temple is, and meditate on my word. I have destined you to spread the good on earth, which is true spirituality. Do you feel incapable and small? Do you judge yourselves impure to be able to carry on your spirit a mission of this nature? It is that you do not know my wisdom and my mercy. It is that you do not observe with purity the examples that I give you at each step through nature. Don't you see how the rays, illuminating everything, reach even the most infected pond, evaporating it, raising it to the heavens, purifying it and finally turning it into a cloud that will pass over the fields, fertilizing them? Sometimes you tell me, Master, how have you set your eyes on the humanity of this time, when there are no longer patriarchs, or just, or men who can be your apostles, if you see that we live in a world of slime and sin? To which I reply that my power makes lilies sprout from the same mud from which no one could imagine that a flower of such marvelous purity would emerge. Let the sun of my word penetrate into your being, so that it may purify you and elevate you, and soon you will rise, fertilizing the hearts of your brothers. Allow the cleanliness of your works and the purity of your prayers to flourish in the midst of this life of sin and corruption that humanity lives, and truly I tell you that your spirit will then have nothing to envy of the lilies. I will speak in this form for a short time, a time that you will take advantage of as the plants of the fields take advantage of the propitious season to grow, flower and bear fruit. Truly, truly I tell you, that there is more love in repentant sinners, than in those who have always considered themselves good. Thus, I will continue speaking and sinners will continue to repent of their faults and increase the number of converts. The heart of the sinner is more sensitive to the touch of love of my word, and there are many men who have sinned because in their life they have lacked love. When they have listened to my fatherly voice, calling them, healing their wounds, understanding them as no one on earth has understood them, they have soon felt the divine touch in their most sensitive fibers and have experienced the perseverance of their teacher before them. This is how many men go around the world looking for a redemptive phrase or light, a consolation for their pain. They look for someone who forgives them, who does not point out their faults, who speaks to them of a better life, but they do not find him in the world and then they close in on themselves, they become hermetic and they trust no one with their secrets again. Those hearts can only be opened by the key of love, the one that I possess, and that I precisely come to entrust to everyone who opens his heart and says to me, Master, I want to follow you. From the bottom of the hearts of the multitude comes this question, are you the Messiah? I only say to you, listen to my word, penetrate its meaning and seek its essence. I speak the truth, I teach the way, I reveal the reincarnation that is law so that the spirit is perfected and reaches the goal of its destiny. Do you doubt it? Truly I tell you that the truth is in no way altered by your doubts, it remains the same. I tell you never to deny just because you don't understand. Think that if only what your poor mind understands were true, nothing would exist. There are those who tell me, Master, if you know everything, if even before the children are, you know them, did you know that at that time Judas was going to deliver you? Ah, rude understandings that even in these times come to formulate such questions. I who know everything, that's why I chose him, because I knew that that man could not act in another way, and it was essential that I make use of each of the imperfections of my disciples to deliver a lesson. The disciple who betrayed his master is a symbol, an open book that exists in each human conscience, so that you could understand its meaning and listen to its teachings. Know that in every man lives a Judas. Yes, disciples, because in your case matter is the Judas of the Spirit, matter is the one that opposes the shining of the light of spirituality, the one that lies in wait for the Spirit to make it fall into materialism, into low passions. But not because it is your matter that leads you to the abyss, you are going to condemn it, no, because you need it for your advancement and you will overcome it with your spirituality, as I overcame Judas with love. I see that you doubt the power of love, that you doubt the strength of faith, that you doubt the communication of my spirit through the human understanding, that you even doubt your gifts or powers that you have not yet developed. What can you do with so much doubt? What wonders can you feel? Neither. You are so obstinate in your skepticism and you are so strong in your doubt, that you do not allow the spiritual light to reach the bottom of your understanding with its sparkles. But when you come to spiritualize yourselves, when you come to live life according to my teachings and according to my will, you will see emerge from your being the powers that you denied and the gifts that you never believed you possessed. Then, when you are spiritual and have purity and meekness in your heart, you will see how all the elements of nature will be kind and obedient to you, because your spirituality made you enter into harmony with them. When you have spirituality, you will no longer say, Father, give me sustenance, give me intelligence, give me material wealth. Much less will you make the mistake of telling me, Father, if you grant me what I ask of you, I will give you what I have, whatever you ask of me. Do you not believe, disciples, that this way of asking is equivalent to tempting your Father? Do you believe that I can give you more and better, when you give to me? And what would become of you if when you tell me to ask you for what you have, what I want, in exchange for granting you what you request, I withhold from you what you love most in the world? Would you withstand any test? No, disciples, it is time that you let your conscience guide all your actions and thoughts. Let your faith speak and heaven will answer you. The divine spirit was full of love, despite the existence of only him. Nothing had been created, there was nothing around the divine being and yet he loved and felt like a father. Who did he love? Whose father did he feel? Of all the beings and all the creatures that were to spring from him and whose strength was latent in his spirit. In that spirit were all the sciences, all the elements, all the natures, all the principles. He was eternity and time. In him were the past, the present and the future, even before the worlds and beings came to life. That divine inspiration came true under the infinite force of divine love, and life began. The universe was filled with beings, and in all the love, power and wisdom of the Father was manifested. Like an inexhaustible spring of life was the bosom of the Lord from that moment in which he arranged for the atoms to unite to form bodies and integrate beings. First there was the spiritual life, first it was the spirits and then the material nature. As it was arranged that many spiritual beings would have to take corporeal form to inhabit material worlds, everything was previously prepared, so that the sons of the Lord would find everything ready. He sowed with blessings the path that his children would have to travel, he flooded the universe with life and filled the path of man with beauties, in which he deposited a divine sparkle, conscience and spirit, thus forming love, intelligence, strength, will and conscience, but he enveloped everything that existed in his strength and marked its destiny. The Father remained there, as the beginning of everything that exists, and after offering himself to the universe the path of evolution and improvement, he remained awaiting the return of all his children, so that in him they would also find their end, which would be the perfection of the Spirit and eternity. That path traced to each element, each creature and each species, was the law that the Creator wrote indelibly in his children. Since then, everything vibrates for the purpose for which it was created, since then, everything has walked towards perfection, constantly revolving around a mantle, a principle and the law. The Father, like the sower, took the elements of life that were in him, as if they were earth, and there he deposited the seed of life that comes from his love, to wait for the day to collect a fruit as perfect as it was the seed. And how was the inspiration? The men of science of these times are abysmal upon discovering that their world has more time to live than yesterday the first scientists supposed, and when they believe that the earth is a star in decline, about to go out, I say that he has lived so little yet, that he still has a long way to go to reach the stage of being able to shelter the generations of grace and spirituality. My peace be with you.